A habit is an action that is persistent, frequent, and automatic. You don't think about it, you just do it. Habits are formed through practice. If you complete an action enough times, then that action becomes more and more automatic, eventually becoming a habit. On the other hand of habits are what we call goal-oriented behaviors. Those are things that you actively think about. They aren't automatic. You weigh your options, you think about results, and then you decide on outcome. So you have habits on one hand that are automatic, and goal-oriented behaviors on the other hand that are kind of a more process, and you think about them and they're not automatic. The reason I'm in my car right now is to show you an example of a habit. Every time I get in the car, I unlock my phone, and I'm filling my phone right now, so this is my old iPhone 5C. Look how small it is. But every time I get in the car, I take my phone out of my pocket and I put in the passcode, unlocking it, right? That is a habit I have. I practiced the action of getting into my car, take out the phone, unlock the phone so many times over and over that it became a habit. So if I wanted to break that habit, what would I do? Well, it turns out that behaviors are created on a stimulus response outcome sequence. Right? You have your stimulus, which is the thing that causes you to act. You have the response, which is the action in response to the stimulus. And you have the outcome, the result of that action, right? And all of our behaviors kind of fall somewhere along this sequence. A habit is on a stimulus response sequence. It's something that happens, again, automatically. So when you have a stimulus, you automatically go to that response. Whereas a goal-oriented behavior is more on the response outcome sequence, where you think about, okay, if I do this, then it will result in this. So those are how the two behaviors are different. If you want to start a habit, you have to take it from response outcome to stimulus response. And if you want to stop a habit, you have to take it from stimulus response back to goal-oriented behavior or response outcome. So how did I create the habit of pulling out my phone? Well, at first, it was a goal-oriented behavior, right? I drive around a lot. I drive for work. I drive to see my friends, everything. And so I get in my car, and oftentimes I don't know where I'm going. I have a problem, a stimulus. The response to that stimulus is to pull out my phone and unlock it so I can access the GPS. And then the outcome is I now have a map to where I'm going, and I've solved my problem. So I did that enough times. I had a problem of not knowing where I'm going while I was in the car. I had the response of taking out my phone, and I had the outcome of fixing it. Eventually, my brain associated the action of me getting into my car with the problem of me not knowing where I was going. It also associated the outcome of fixed problem, I now know where I'm going, to taking out my phone. And so as a result, my brain automated the action. Every single time I got in the car, it assumed I had that problem, so it would automatically take out the phone because it would solve the problem. Now, habits are pretty common throughout the animal kingdom. It's thought that your brain automates as many things as possible so that it can do more without having to think about all these things at once. Like, imagine if you had to think every single time you took a step or went to go eat something or anything like that. If your brain automates more things, it just makes your life easier and faster. That's a pretty gross oversimplification of how habits are formed and why they're formed. But again, the goal here is not to make you a neuroscience expert. It's just to help you understand the topic so that you can actually use the information and hopefully help yourself. So how do I create good habits? Well, if there was some behavioral hack that I could give you to automatically make a habit of going to the gym every day or eating healthy or drinking enough water or whatever, I would give it to you, I promise. But it doesn't exist, at least to my knowledge, right? We know that habits are created through repeated action. And so the reality is creating a good habit takes a little bit of determination and more discipline. There is one little cheat code that I learned. It's not backed by science from what I've seen, but it worked for me, and I learned it from Alex Hormozy, and it worked for him too. I've been listening to his podcasts. It's called piggybacking habits. The example is I have a face wash or like a lotion that I put on every morning. It has sunscreen to protect my skin because I'm very, very white. But I've never been a skincare guy. I would always forget to do it. But what I do every morning is brush my teeth. And so I just put this lotion next to my toothbrush, and now I start brushing my teeth and I put lotion on my face kind of at the same time. I had an existing habit and I just added this one to it so that I would now have both habits. And that worked for me. Again, that's just kind of anecdotal, but it worked for me and it might work for you as well. Now, a little bit trickier of a question, how do I break a bad habit? This is trickier because even switching the outcome of a habit to a punishment doesn't always break the habit. One study showed that a rat trained to press a lever in order to obtain a reward is said to have developed a habitual response using this paradigm if it continues to press the lever at the same rate, even if the reward has been switched to become aversive. This tells us that even punishing yourself to try to break a habit probably won't work. There is hope, though, and it comes to this thing called dual process theory. Dual process theory states that whenever you're going to make a decision, your brain has to quickly decide whether to use a already existing habit or goal-oriented behavior, where you think about your response and outcomes and things like that. And the way that it determines which of these two to go for is which of the options is less uncertain. Right? Which of these options is the most familiar to you? Dual process theory teaches us that context matters when it comes to habits. If your brain recognizes your feelings, your emotions, the people you're around, the environment that you're in, it will choose a habitual response, an existing action. It thinks, I've been here before, and therefore it can predict an outcome with certainty. But if the context is new, then your brain doesn't have that certainty. It doesn't have that ability to predict an outcome. And so it goes for a goal-oriented behavior where you actually have to take note of your surroundings and think about your options. According to dual process theory, novelty or newness is the enemy of habit. To test this, one time I took my phone and I put it in my left pocket rather than my right pocket where I usually put it. As I got into the car, I reached for the phone with my right hand in my right pocket. When I didn't feel it there, I actually physically stopped in my tracks. My brain almost said, wait, this is new, something's weird. And it switched from the habitual response of taking the phone out of the pocket to, okay, let me think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It forced me to consider, do I have to take my phone out? Essentially starting to break the habit. And this is where my friend's success story comes in too. It turns out that he was looking to break the habit of eating automatically or overeating. And so he went to Wawa and got a sub, as he normally does. Instead of eating it with the right hand, he ate it with the left. And what he said was that he was very conscious of every single bite he took. He ended up stopping to eat when he was full because of that consciousness, because the eating was no longer automatic, because it was a new context. Left hand rather than right hand. Something that simple. If you're having trouble breaking a habit, think about the context in which the habit happens. What are you feeling? Who are you with? Where are you? If you can change something about that habit, you'll force novelty, you'll force newness onto the behavior and force yourself into goal-oriented behavior, which is how you start to reshape or break that habit. Right? So add something new, take something away, change something that's always been there. Anything you can do to just add a little bit of uncertainty, which is the enemy of habits. Hopefully this was helpful. Habits can be really powerful if you pick the right ones, but they can also be dangerous if you don't. So now hopefully you have an idea of how to start forming new good habits and how to start reshaping the old ones that you're looking to break. If you have any more questions about this or anything else related to mental health, mental illness, anything like that, please let us make some content for you. Love doing it, and it's good to know that what we're doing actually has an impact on real people out there. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, if you found this at all helpful, and good luck. You got this.